Hey gang, so I've recently cranked out a handful of videos on various Radio Shack gear, but there's one that I forgot to mention. Why? Because it doesn't really fit in with most of these, and also because it's part of my backup system. But it is one of the first things that I ever had. What could it be? Somebody play the damn theme song and we'll find out.
He got into vintage audio a year ago, but there's a lot of things he still doesn't know, so he started up a channel on YouTube, and here he is now, the Vintage Newbie.
What a rockin' song. Alright, let's get to it, shall we? The final piece, I think, of vintage Radio Shack gear that I'll be talking about is a receiver that's a backup receiver in case any of these break, and it's also the first receiver that got me back into getting into home stereo equipment. Oh, but I thought that was the STA-84 receiver that you first did. Yeah, well, that was kind of a vintage 70s style. This one is from the 90s, from 1993, which may or may not seem like vintage, but that was 30 years ago. Wow. And here it is. The Optimus STAV-3280. It's an audio video receiver, so you could like plug in DVD players, laser disc. There's a laser disc setting, folks, because it was 1993. VCR. You can have tape decks, you can have record players, you can have CD players. So let's get into all the fun and functions of the Optimus STAV-3280 audio visual, I don't know, audio Vernon receiver from Radio Shack. Or is it? Now the reason I said or is it all ominously is because the Optimus STAV-3280 receiver shown here, sitting on top of an Onkyo cassette deck, is in fact a rebadged Pioneer VSX 462S receiver. I will throw up a picture of that so you can compare the two. Were you taking notes? I hope so. Yeah, it is pretty much exactly identical with the exception of that little divider about 2/3 of the way down from here, just below the display. On the Pioneer, it's more just flat and rounded out on the edges as opposed to the straighter edges there. Okay, let's get into the functions of this thing. Now this is an audio video receiver, but I used it just as a 2-channel stereo. So, alright, power button. And after I press this, you'll hear the Pioneer relay click. That click means that it's on. So, you have a phono, so you can play records on it. You can play tapes. You can have a VCR playing through it, or a tape too, if you have 2 cassette decks hooked up. Phono, which we already saw for your record players. Let's kick the tape 2 off. Tuner, for if you want to listen to the radio. If you want to listen to CDs, you can do that too. What about laser discs? LDs. But, you know, all that stuff is just, you can, I mean, for Laserdisc, I usually had an iPod or an iPhone plugged into it. for the functions in the back. You've got all your presets here. You can do mono for the radio. There's all sorts of functions. You can do simulated stereo sound. You can do Dolby Pro Logic. You can do Dolby Pro Sound. You can do simulated surround sound. You can do stereo sound. They're just different kind of little, I don't know what technical term would be, phase variants maybe, that just produce a different sound. You can do A and B speakers. You've got your controls for, what does that say? Bass, treble, balance. You've got your volume knob there. Tuning is with these little buttons there. Memory for programming your various, presets on your radio. Whenever you hit certain things, little displays will light up, letting you know which functions you're using. Then return will go back to the previous one. And oh yes, the bass boost button, the super bass, which is, I guess, the updated version of the loudness button from the previous decades of stereo equipment. And your headphones jack for if you want to listen in private. Yay! Whoosh. Now here's the back of this bad boy and everything that you can connect to it. Over here, you can plug in like a little dipole antenna or any other kind of antenna, or you could even plug in, just a nice little hack, speaker wires. You just have them plugged in, and then the other end, you have them just kind of, get it on camera, just separated and spread out, and it'll help pick up the FM channels. Then you've got your phono jacks for hooking up a record player and a grounding post, so you can ground your turntable so it doesn't produce a crazy buzzing hum. CD player, laser disc player, which, like I said, are also just updated versions of the aux jack, so you can plug anything with an RCA cable into it. I did have a CD player plugged into the CD player, but in the laser disc player I had my iPod Classic and then sometimes my iPhone as well. And for these VCR ones, those are basically like it says on here, tapes, so you could have your tape in and out on that. And look, there's another one, tape monitor as well. So you could have multiple cassette decks in there, or use these if you have multiple CD players or iPhone and an iPod. Whatever you want to do, you can plug into there. There are video connections. I never used it for that, so sorry. You've got all your speaker connections there. You can even do center speakers, but fair warning on this, when I got it, the guy did have a remote for it and he offered for me to have it, but I was like, no, I'm just using this thing for analog, so I like the getting up and touching the buttons and all that. So I passed on the remote, which ended up not being the smartest thing because the only way to access the center speaker control is with the remote, and I ended up getting a center speaker when I got some JBL speakers. So now I can't use it. Yay! Center amp, I guess that's maybe for a subwoofer. Who knows? Not me. And yeah, you've got a switched outlet as well. This is the main plug for the receiver down here, but up here got an outlet. Yeah, it is switched, and that's what I have the Onkyo tape deck plugged into. So whenever I power up the receiver, I can also turn on the tape deck, but the receiver's off now, so tape deck does not come on. But watch this. If I can reach behind the back of this thing to turn it on. Hear the of the relay. Well, now, yay! I can make cassettes. So there you have it, folks. The Optimus STAV-3280, which is actually a rebranded, rebadged Pioneer VSX 462S. So how does it sound? It sounds really great. I've seen where this thing has been listed as having 80 watts per channel. I've seen it listed as I've seen it listed as having 100 watts per channel. But however many watts it has a lot. It sounds great. Like I said, this was the first receiver that I got last year that really got me back into getting away from just having computer desktop speakers plugged into an iPod, which I'd been doing since I lost all my stereo equipment in 2005 to Hurricane Katrina, because I'm from New Orleans. But yeah, I wanted something that was like, oh man, I miss the old days of having, because I did have like the 90s black stereo with just a tons of buttons and shit. And I wanted to get back into that before I transitioned further into the 70s stuff you now see behind me. So I picked this one up, and yeah, looking it up, I discovered the Pioneer connection, and it makes sense. Like, that thing is quite heavy. It does not feel like, even though it's part of that BPC era, which stands for black plastic crap, because folks say that the home stereos of the 90s kind of deteriorated in quality. But this one, I gotta say, God, what is up with the lighting in here? Ugh, I don't know why it's got this orangey filter. So that's more obnoxious than me. But anywho, yeah, that thing is heavy. It's got a heavy power transformer in it, which, for the most part, with stereos and speakers, heavy equals good. Even though, like I said, I transitioned out of the 90s stuff and more into the 70s stuff as far as vintage is concerned. But I kept that one. Not only for the sentimental value of starting me down this path, but also because, yeah, it sounds good. You can hook a lot of stuff into it. I loved having, VCR and Laserdisc as the display whenever I would switch it to different components. Again. So if either of these two receivers ever end up in the shop, or both of them, God forbid, I'll keep that Optimus / Pioneer as a backup. If you see one out there, either the Pioneer or the rebadged Optimus version, pick them up. You can usually find them on eBay for around $100, give or take. So me, the vintage newbie, highly recommends it. I give it a 8 out of 10. No, 9 out of 10. How you like that? No idea what the scale is based on, but it's one I'm sticking to. So with that, we're going to bring this episode to a close. Thanks for sticking around if you did. Thanks for liking, sharing, and subscribing if you did. And thanks if you didn't, too. Do you have anything to say about it? Leave about it in the comments below. I'll get back to you then. And dialogue. All right. See you next time. Have a blessed day.